Thanks everybody for joining me today. This is recorded, but I'll be with you at the end of this talk for live questions. So I look forward to those. So my name is Dr. Wayne Phimister, and today my webinar is on food and eating lifestyle. Now, I've already done a webinar for the People in Pain Network on an anti-inflammatory diet, which I found very effective at understanding why inflammation happens in the body, and by taking foods out that cause inflammation in our body, therefore helps us move forward, not only with the chronic pain, but also in other areas of our health. So, and food is more than just what we put in our mouth and what we digest and absorb and the nutrients in our body. There's a bigger subject to that. So we're going to touch on what foods to eat, and then we're going to go through a process of looking at your life in a bigger sphere and lessons from around the world and how we can optimize our health by what we're eating and the lifestyle around it. So that's the plan for today. So first, anti-inflammatory foods. Now, the reality is, when we look at diets, they generally don't work. And I think one of the reasons why they don't work is when we take away certain foods, our body will be demanding that certain nutrients or absences that it's missing. So if you're not eating any carbs, for example, like none, then the body will crave carbs, and eventually you'll eat carbs again. But on a deeper level, it's the microbiome, which is the bacteria in the gut, that is literally running the show regarding what we eat and what we don't eat. And it's not as simple as, getting a meal plan and then you eat that and you stick with that. The reality is, unless the microbiome changes, then we're always going to be pulled back out of the diet into our old habits. And the reality is, about 95% or so of diets are unsuccessful, and you get this yo-yo type effect of weight loss, weight gain, weight loss, weight gain. And as a result, more often than not, people put on more weight. So on the subject of the intestine and the microbiome, these bugs are literally being stimulated and coded to turn on their genetic makeup for an inflammatory response. Because if we're eating foods that are inflammatory, then it stimulates our response in the gut, and therefore the body becomes inflamed, because these inflammatory molecules, these proteins, go in through the intestinal wall through a syndrome called leaky gut syndrome, which is just one cell thick breaches of the wall, and these inflammatory proteins go in and then into the body and to every organ in our body. And I would say most medical conditions do have an inflammatory component to them. And when we change what we eat, we literally start to heal the gut. We switch off those inflammatory coding in the bacteria and the other bugs. And as a result, our body starts to heal. I'm a big believer in the body knows what to do to heal. We see that if you break a bone, or you have a cold, or you have a cut or a laceration in the skin, the body heals. But there are reasons why we don't heal. And this gut connection is fundamental to that. So the question may be, which foods do I eat? Which foods do I avoid? Well, there's a nice list if you go on to Google or any search engine and put in the plant paradox, yes list, no list. You'll get a foods of yes foods. Those are foods that you can eat that are very low in inflammatory levels or no inflammatory levels. And there's no foods, which are avoid these because they are higher in inflammatory levels. Now, this is tricky, because if you go to this list, you'll probably get a little bit of overwhelm. Some people freak out. People say, oh, I can't do this. But my encouragement is to look at the list and just reflect on it. You know, the one thing that I teach all my patients about is the bridging from where you are to where you're going to go. And I would say most of my patients do try this approach. And I would say they find benefit. And I think the 5 key areas are with energy levels, feeling good, gut health, so if any intestinal issues like reflux generally settle, IBS can settle, and chronic pain or pain levels improve, and overall they just feel better. So it really does work, and it's not really a diet as such, it's more of a lifestyle. It's an anti-inflammatory lifestyle, which is what I'm promoting today. Now, in this list, if you're planning to move forward towards changing your life, changing your foods, there's a new section in Dr. Gundry's book called The Plant Paradox Family Cookbook, which has a section on using a slow cooker or a pressure cooker. And there's 3 foods in this list that if you check online, it's going to say, no, you don't eat those. But in reality, you can eat them to optimize inflammation levels. And these are really important 3. 2 are grains and 1 is vegetables, because they're essential for our health. 1 is legumes. That's your chickpeas, lentils, beans. Very, very healthy. Another one is quinoa, another healthy grain. 3rd one is nightshade vegetables. Now, those are vegetables with skins and seeds. So the commonest one that we see at this time of the year usually is tomatoes, cucumbers, if we're having salads. But also you've got eggplant, you've got peppers, and you've also got zucchini. So if you cook these in a slow cooker or pressure cooker, according to the guidelines in the cooking devices, then you will literally remove the inflammatory proteins or reduce the inflammatory proteins called lectins. And therefore, not only are they healthy for you, but you're reducing the inflammation level with it. And that's the great thing with this new section on the Yes List, which is in the Family Cookbook version of the Plant Paradox. Now, recipes for moving forward, because it's one thing having a list of foods that you should do or should eat, but how do we have that in a practical basis? Maybe you've got a family cooking for lots of people. So it's very helpful, I find, to have recipes. So a couple of resources out there. You can do your searches for lectin-free mama. The lady that is publishing this has contributed to the Plant Paradox Family Cookbook, and she's available online. She's available on search engines. So check her out. She's amazing at coming forth with ideas on how to do this low inflammatory load lifestyle. You've got the Plant Paradox Family Cookbook, as mentioned. And another one I came across recently is Keto Green 16 by an obstetrician and gynecologist who's done some research herself and come out with the term keto was ketogenic diet, which is really fat burning for the main source of calories, and also greens. So it's lots of veggies, lots of salad. And her 16 ties in with different nutrients and different approaches. And I listened to a interview that she had online recently, and I was very impressed with the research as well as how she's helping not only people with weight, but also with hormone issues, fertility issues. Herself, at the age of 39, was told she couldn't have children. And that's after doing lots of infertility treatments. And she came through this and not only had children, but she's done some research, she's published a book, and it's available online. So Keto Green, and that's really looking at the role of alkalinization of foods, alkaline foods. Tricky issue, but it's just another area to look at. And another book and resources that I've come across over the last few years on this subject of healthy eating is the Blue Zone Solution. Now, there's several books in this series by Dan Buettner, and he looks at the healthiest communities around the world and what are the characteristics of their health. So there's a huge similarity between all of these resources and how to optimize not just our pain, but our health and the longevity of our health. Now, let's move on to how do you literally integrate that? So you've maybe got your recipes, but what do you do in person? Well, with my clients, with my patients, and I've got hundreds and hundreds of patients doing this now, I've got two groups. I would say 5% of people or less say, right, this is absolutely for me and I must do this. Many of these people are kind of doing it anyway and they just want to go to the next level. But the majority, 95% or more people are thinking, oh my goodness, this is too much for me. And I'll just do one step at a time. And if there was 5 foods to start in the process, it would be gluten, it would be dairy, it would be corn, it would be soya, and it would be eggs. So these are the 5 foods. So I'll say them again. Dairy and gluten, verse 2. Eggs, soya, and corn. So it's a very simple step-by-step process of elimination and see how your body feels. And that's the big thing I focus upon with people is try this, see how your body feels. And it's going to take about 4 to 6 weeks for the intestinal microbiome to change from inflammatory focused to non-inflammatory focused. And once you do this, you will be different. You will feel different. You'll eat certain foods and you just won't feel so well. And that's your guide at the end of the day, is you will know what's best for your health. Then the tricky thing is integrating that into a long-term strategy. So that brings me on to the next subject, and it's the flexibility, because I'm not a believer in we should all do something 100% of the time, because I think in reality, that's not us. I love the Pareto principle, which states, 80% and 40% of activities lead, so 80% of your income can come from 20% of your activities. Or when you look at other domains in our life, economics, health, there's this 80-20 principle that is almost by nature there. So based on that, it's good to have a day off. So if you're going to go and do your appropriate eating, healthy eating, have a day off. Maybe have 2 days off. So that's kind of the 20%, or 1 to 5 days, have a day off. I personally do this diet most days, and at weekends I relax. I eat some foods that my kids would eat that I would generally not eat on a regular basis. And I think that's great because it gives you more variability and it doesn't affect me that much. So chopping and changing it a little bit, I think is good for us, and it keeps it possible to maintain it on the long term. Because as I said earlier, one of the biggest issues with diets and changes is it's difficult to maintain it. So let's move on to the next subject. This is really, really important. And I think this is missed out of most approaches to healthy eating. And we're going to break it down into 2 main sections. One is individually. So there's you with your food and your eating. Okay. The big thing is enjoy it. It's really, really important that when we're eating, that we enjoy what we're eating. We've spent time, focused time shopping for it, preparing it. Now we're sitting down to eat it and then even tidy up. There's the whole process of eating that happens, not just when you sit down 10 minutes or half an hour. So really enjoy the process. You put the time and the effort and the money into this, and enjoy the bites, enjoy the tastes, enjoy the chewing, enjoy the swallowing. Very simple things we do all the time and we don't even think about it. And this ties into what I was going to say at the end, but I'm going to bring it in now because it's coming up. And just that awareness of what you are doing in that present moment. And the beauty of this is when we're very present with our food, we literally are practicing a mindfulness technique that is a universal approach to cognitive behavioral therapy. So that's, and we'll be talking more about this in other webinars, but you know, how you think and how you behave, how you act has a huge influence into our life. And I'm a big believer, as I see this in my patients, I see it in myself, I see it in my family, that the more we're present with what we're doing, the better or the more we get out of it. So being very present with eating is an extra dimension to our nutrition and our health that's over and above the constituents of the food. So I'd like you to think about that. Okay? And the practice of this is lifelong. You know, I remember recently I was involved in a exercise of just watching myself eat and chew and swallow. And it was crazy because I could only concentrate on the chewing for a few bites. And then my mind got distracted with my children or something else. And it took me almost a week of trying to do this and forgetting to do it, and, you know, to really be present. And from there, I went on to look at swallowing and just focus on swallowing and being present and just slowing down and just being with that moment in time. And you're literally helping your mind and your brain in this whole process of health and, you know, chronic pain treatments. So a little bit of divergence off into cognitive behavioral therapy, but you can't separate the mind and the brain. And in this instance, the digestion and your food, because it's all happening and it's all interrelated at once. And therefore it's so important to make the best of all of it. The second aspect of enjoyment is family and friends. I would say most of us are eating with people. And it's been shown that all through human history, this is how we've eaten food. You know, for hundreds of thousands of years, we've sat around a campfire and eaten food. And it's more modern times, 10,000 years, the onset of agriculture and farming. People spent time together. And this hasn't changed. It's only now in our modern world that we're so busy, and, you know, I think it's lucky if the family sits down for one meal in a day. And I love the saying, you know, a family that eats together stays together. So I encourage you, think about that. At least make one meal a day family orientated. Because our health is not just about the nutrition, it's not just about the digestion. It's also about the people around us, the environment. Maybe have some nice music on. And when I looked into the healthy attributes of those longest living people on the planet, otherwise termed the blue zone, a variety of, excuse me, my son is behind me here, so you might hear a noise. So in the blue zone, one of the characteristics is they eat together. And these people are living well up into their 90s and 100s, and they're happy people, they're functional people, they're resilient people, and they eat together. So I'd like you to think about that and consider that. And if you're not doing that, integrate that into your lifestyle for eating and your nutrition. And just to review some science behind this reasons why eating as a family is important, or eating with presence is important, is our heart and our brain are connected. Now, they're connected through the nervous system. There's the big nerve called the vagal nerve. Excuse me a second. Sorry about this. Lots of distractions. So the big vagal nerve, second biggest nerve in the body after the sciatic nerve, it has connections from the brain, lots of different areas, all the way down to your intestine, to your heart, to your lungs. And the science around this nerve shows that there's 9 times more nerve pathways up the way from the organs to the brain. So that's the sensory component, compared to the motor component, which is from the brain down to control the heart rate, to control the intestine, to control the movement and the function of the lungs. So this vagal nerve is instrumental in the connection between the intestine and your digestion and your brain. And when we're relaxed, when we're enjoying our food, when we've slowed down enough and we're aware of it, we're literally sending signals all the way up to the brain, and therefore allowing that mind and body connection. And when we've got a mind-body connection, we'll actually get more absorption of the nutrients, and we'll actually get the goodness of the food. And I love the studies and the work down at HeartMath Institute in California. And they've been studying this for close to 20 years now, looking at the heart-brain connection. And they look not only at this aspect, but also the electromagnetics of the body. And so again, a big subject, which I think I'll talk about in another webinar. And all this is scientifically proven for decades, showing the heart-brain connection. And in this case, the heart-brain-gut connection. You know, I think the future of medicine will be based on understanding the microbiome. The DNA coding of it has been finished, as well as you may know, the human genetic coding is being completed. And solutions for diseases almost certainly will come from this angle of our health. And I really look forward to following that as we progress over the decades. So just to summarize, eating food and being healthy and helping our pain is a big subject. It's not just about what you're putting in your mouth. It's about your mind, it's about your mental state. It's about your environment. It's about your awareness. And just to finish this subject, one thing that I've got memory from childhood, and it was my Auntie Jeannie, an old dear lady who loved to say grace, loved to say thank you. And I don't know why this memory comes to mind, but you know, it's a trait that's been in my family for generations as well. And it's not something I do all the time, but it's maybe something I should do all the time. And it's just to verbally say a thankful prayer, or just a thought of being grateful for the food, blessing the food. And I think that literally does enhance the quality of the food. And you may think that's a bit odd to say, but there's reasons why we do things for generations and generations and generations. We may not entirely understand scientifically why, but I think the study of quantum physics has clearly shown this interconnectedness of ourselves with other people and around the world and the universe. And I think that's why blessing food. So being grateful for the food is a very healthy thing to do, and I strongly recommend it. So thanks for listening. I really look forward to the live question and answer session that will be coming after this. So have a great day.